So this is a video for anyone struggling currently with weed and they're coping to themselves, quite frankly, that weed makes them productive. This is the title of this video and I'm already giving you the answer here. Weed is not making you productive. It is making you feel fine with your current situation, and any productive person that used to smoke weed can attest to the fact that weed make them less productive. It make them feel like they're more productive, but in reality it made them less productive in hindsight. I had an upbringing where a lot of my friends, family, were weed smokers, and some of them still are weed smokers, and that's why I don't speak to any of my past friends. Weed makes you definitely more paranoid. It makes you more of a pussy. Already this video is age restricted. It makes you fear more. Like, I know somebody in the comment section might say, oh, but weed doesn't make me paranoid, weed doesn't make me do all that. Well, I'm talking to the general populace, and even though weed may not make you paranoid, it definitely makes you less productive, that's for sure. If you have more negative side effects, it damages your sperm cells, so if you're trying for a healthy child, you should probably stop smoking weed. Unless you want unhealthy children, and come on now, nobody wants that. It increases your estrogen and decreases your testosterone. To the testosterone, not to a very high degree, but it does increase your estrogen to a high degree. But all the fancy, sciencey things to the side, I'm going to talk about my personal experience with weed and whether or not it made me more or less productive. Now, this is the first time I've ever mentioned this on my channel, but the first time I ever took a drag of weed was when I was probably 12 years old. It wasn't cannabis like most people, it was hash, the more potent form of cannabis, as some of you may know. It wasn't the first time, it was the second time. And for those of you who do smoke, come on, you're watching this video because you do smoke, you know that you don't get high the first time, you get high the second time. And for me, I got high the second time. Me being 12 years old and not being mature, not being fully developed, it made me feel like I was on a psychedelic, to be honest. It wasn't like a regular weed trip that I'll be able to have right now. Back then, this was this was like mushrooms to me back in the day, without the visuals obviously. But back in the day, it was something very psychedelic, it was very potent to me. That's what I remember. I remember feeling like I was in this dream state. I remember that I wanted the high to end. It was definitely too intense for me. It made me think that my reality is just a dream. I literally felt like I was living reality, like I was in a dream. I would find myself repeating things over and over and over and over again for some reason. Definitely something similar on a mushroom trip, where you would find yourself in this loop where you would keep repeating things over and over again. I've had that experience on weed, which was very strange to me. And I just remember this whole experience being a very terrible thing, and it definitely made me want to not try that ever again. But I am proud of the fact that I did try it, that I knew weed wasn't really a big thing to hype up. I know a lot of my friends my age already did start smoking weed, so a lot of my friends even started weed even earlier than me, 10 years old, taking their first hits. But yeah, that first experience definitely made me want to step back and never do that ever again. But again, later on, being a teenager, I've already tried it once. Why not do it a second time? The teenager brain, that's what he thinks. This dumbass teenager brain. But this time, when I was 14, 15, 16, I became a little bit more addicted to it. This time it became a little bit more pleasurable. It wasn't this whole weird psychedelic dreamy state. It was more this relaxed. I remember myself laughing a lot, having a great time. But I realized everything except for my social skills, actually going out and smoking weed with my friends, that is the only thing that has improved. But everything else in my life is diminished. My grades, I became less disciplined. I stopped working out. When I was 13, I lost a lot of weight, and I was boxing every day, I was training every day, but I stopped doing that. I became weak. I remember having like skinny arms. My confidence definitely went down. I couldn't like approach women like I used to, like regularly. I remember that my focus switched from being like very into like science. I was very into psychology and science, and then I remember it slowly, that interest turned into trying other substances, and that definitely took me down a different rabbit hole, which we'll probably get into in a different time of this video. So when people say that weed is a gateway drug, I do agree with that. Me personally, weed was definitely a gateway drug to do other things. But we're here today, and we have a self-improvement channel. And I'm only 18, turning 19 in 2 weeks, I believe. So my life has only just begun, and I don't regret anything I ever did in my life, because we're here today, and I have all of these great stories that I can talk about, that I can discuss, that I can share, and you can learn something from me, I can learn something from you. Does weed make you productive? It absolutely doesn't. At least in my experience, I found that my life has completely went sideways. I've lost all of my past interests. I became very introverted. I became very distant with my family. I stopped picking up my phone because at times I was too high to pick up the phone from my parents. I would come back home at late times on purpose because I didn't want to go back home while I was high. So as you can tell, my relationship with my parents definitely went downhill. And I hope you can learn something from this video. Like, as a friend talking to you, I hope you can extract any type of information for a more positive and well thought out and a more responsible view on how you see weed and productivity and the combination between the two. Men do not attract that which they want, but that which they are. And I'll see you in the next one.